Hello and welcome. So in this lecture, we are going to write a PHP script to download or upload any file from the remote server. So the remote server in this case is going to be my Apache server. So I'm going to do service Apache to start to turn on my web server. तो यहाँ पे अपना web server start हो चुका है and we can just do ls to list all the files in this web server. So we have a file called linpiece.sh. Okay, so this is a tool which is used for Linux Prevask. तो इस फाइल को मैं डाउनलोड करना चाहता हूँ किसी भी डायरेक्टरी में मेरे सिस्टम में. सो लेट्स सी इफ आई वांट टू गो टू सम अदर डायरेक्टरी. सो वी कैन डू कंट्रोल शिफ्ट ओ टू स्प्लिट द टर्मिनल हॉरिजॉन्टली. We can just navigate to the home directory and here I'm going to write this file. Okay, so we can just do php. तो php जो है that is by default installed in any Linux OS and we can just do dash dash help to list all the help, or you can just do man php if a manual entry is present for it. Okay, next thing is we are going to write the file in Genie text editor, which is my favorite. So let's open Genie and here we go. तो कोई भी PHP स्क्रिप्ट स्टार्ट करने से पहले हमको एंगल ब्रैकेट ओपन करना होगा, देन अ क्वेश्चन मार्क फॉलोड बाय PHP, then this file is going to be end with a question mark followed by angle bracket. So let's do Control S to save, and first of all let's try to execute a very simple thing. So we are going to use a PHP function, PHP inbuilt function, that is pass through. So as we can see, this is already suggesting me what I am going to type. So we are going to use this function, and one important thing to note is every line in PHP ends with a semicolon, and this function is used to execute any system command. So let's say I want to execute the command called pwd, which stands for print the current working directory. Let's do Control S to save, and this file is located in the folder called opt, in the folder called transferring files with code. तो मैं already उस folder में हूँ. So let's do ls, and as we can see we have the file called write files using PHP. We can do cat write files.php. So as we can see, this is the code we just wrote and I want to execute this code. So what we are going to do, we are going to use PHP and we are going to specify the dash f option. तो dash f option से क्या होगा, we can execute any file of PHP. Okay, so let's do this. So a very simple command, we are using PHP and we are going to execute a PHP file जिसका कोड आपके सामने है. Let's do enter, and as we can see, this is printing the result of pwd, which is the current working directory. All right, so this was very simple. Let's clear the terminal. Next thing is we are going to go to Genie and just remove this function. We have another function called php info. This takes no input by default, so let's do Control S to save, and we can just execute the script the same way we did. And as we can see, this is showing the basic info of the PHP server we are going to run. So let's clear the terminal again. तो ये तो दो basic functions अपन ने देखे. तो ऐसे बहुत सारे functions होते हैं PHP programming language में जो कि inbuilt functions होते हैं, predefined functions होते हैं. Okay, so the goal is to download a file which is located at this URL http, and we have 192.168.146.128 and in a folder called evil files, and the name of the file is linpiece.sh. So this is the URL जहाँ से हमें file download करनी है. So let's copy that. Okay, so first of all I'm going to create a variable called buffer and that is going to be constant, जिसकी value during the script किसी भी point पे change नहीं होने वाली है. So we are going to create a variable called buffer which is equal to 1024. Okay, तो एक किलोबाइट में 1024 बाइट्स होते हैं. तो we are creating a variable called buffer which has the value of 1024. Next thing is we are going to create another variable which is fremote, that is going to hold the value of the opened file, which we are going to open using a function called fopen. So fopen, and this function by default takes two arguments, 1 and 2. So the first string is the URL to linpiece.sh. Very simple thing, and I want to read this as a binary file. So very simple thing, we are opening a file and we are reading it as a binary file and holding the value in a variable called fremote. Okay, and next thing is we are going to create another variable which is called flocal, because this variable will be used to write the file to the disk. So we are using the same function again, fopen, and this will end with a semicolon. So fopen will also contain two arguments, 1 and 2. Okay, the first argument will be the name of the file which we want to write. So let's use linpiece.sh sh. So that is in capital, so it will be easy for us to differentiate that actually we route a file to the current working directory जहाँ पे हम script execute करने वाले हैं. So we are opening this file and we are going to write it as a binary file. Fine. Next thing is we are going to use a while loop. So while we are reading a file using the fread function, we are going to read the file. तो अपने को एक फाइल रीड करनी है, that is fremote. So we want to read this file in a buffer of 1024. So that's why we defined that constant variable. And please store the value in a variable called buffer. Very simple. तो जो भी हम read कर रहे हैं, so we are reading the contents of this file as a binary file and we are reading the contents in a buffer of 1024 bytes. And then we are storing the buffer in a variable called buffer in lowercase. And while we are doing this, we just want to write this to flocal. So we are going to use a function called fwrite. So using this function, we are going to write the file to the disk. So we want to write this buffer to this local file on the disk, flocal, and we are going to write from buffer. So very simple thing, we are writing the contents of this variable to this file which we just opened using the fopen function, and the name of the file is linpiece.sh, and we are writing this as a binary file. And what we are doing is we are opening a file fremote from a remote URL which is URL to linpiece.sh, and the URL is this, and from this URL we are opening a file, and after opening the file we are going to read that file in a buffer of 1024 bytes and then storing it in a variable called buffer, and then we are writing that buffer to the local file on the disk. So it's a very simple thing. Alright, so after writing this we can just close this while loop, and after closing the while loop we can close the flocal file. So that's a variable and that is going to end with a semicolon. Control D to duplicate the line, and then we are going to close the fremote file. So a very simple thing. So let me revise the script again. We are creating a constant variable called buffer. So the value of the variable is not going to change, that's why we are using the constant keyword. Next thing is we are opening a file from a remote URL and we are reading that file from the remote URL as a binary file and storing the contents in a variable called fremote. Similarly, we are opening another file which is an empty file on the disk, and the name of the file is going to be linpiece.sh, and we want to write this as a binary file and we are storing the variable flocal. Next thing is we are starting a while loop, and in this while loop we are reading a file called fremote and we are reading that file in a buffer of 1024 bytes. After that we are storing the contents in a variable called buffer, and finally we are writing the contents of the buffer to the local file on the disk, and then we are closing the two files. So a very simple script. So let's try to execute this script. So let's execute this script. So we are going to use php-f to execute a PHP file, and the name of the file is write files using PHP. Okay, and as we can see we just wrote a file. Next thing is I'm going to show you what happened on the web server. तो अपने सर्वर से कोई भी फाइल डाउनलोड हुई है, we can check in the logs of the server, और Apache 2 सर्वर के जो logs हैं they are stored in a folder called var log apache 2. We can do ls to see all the logs, and the file that is interesting to us is access.log. So we can just clear the terminal, we can do cat access.log, and as we can see a get request was made to this remote URL and a 200 OK status code was returned from the server, and this is the host which requested the file, which is the local host. Okay, so if we do ls, we have the file called linpiece.sh. so this file is in capital. We can just do cat linpiece.sh, and as we can see we have the file. So this is very amazing. We can write any file using this PHP script, and this task can be achieved using any programming language of your choice. PHP is my favorite, so I'm using PHP. And next thing is, जैसे अपन ने यहाँ पे Apache server start किया था और फिर अपन ने logs check किए थे, तो इसका alternate क्या हो सकता है? We can just use another server which is the Python 3 http.server class. And using this class, we are not going to check the logs anywhere like we did in the Apache. तो यहाँ पे हमको डायरेक्टली पता चल जाएगा कि कोई गेट रिक्वेस्ट हुई थी क्या. तो अपन सीधा जीनी में जाएंगे और अपने आईपी को यहाँ पे चेंज कर देंगे. So just need to remove this folder and let's check on which port it is running. तो बाय डिफॉल्ट ये जो Python 3 का सर्वर है पोर्ट 8000 पे स्टार्ट होता है, तो we can do port 8000. And next thing is the name of the file is linpiece.sh. We can do Control S to save, and we can do clear the terminal. We can remove the existing file which is linpiece.sh. Then we can just execute the same script again. And as we can see, a get request was made to this server, 200 OK status code was returned, and the server requesting the file is this. So that is the localhost. So I hope you enjoyed this lecture a lot, and ऐसे ही lectures आते रहेंगे इस channel पे. So that was all about it. So have a great day ahead and thank you.